Hi, in this chapter we will talk about flow control. Flow control means that based on a condition or variable value, the executed code block is changed. Java has two control structure, flow control structure, if-else and switch statements. Now let's talk about if and else statements. A code block is executed only if a condition is true. Condition should be boolean. So this is the syntax. If we are putting the condition here, this condition might be a number comparison, a string comparison, or a value comparison, or anything else that can be evaluated as a boolean result. After that, we are putting a curly bracket and we write the code that we want to execute if this condition is true, and then we close the block with a curly bracket again. These curly brackets are important because if you don't put a curly bracket, this if condition will be valid for only the next just one line. Let's see an if-else example. Here we have an if block and we are comparing student count by 10. So if student count is greater than 10, this code block will be executed. In previous chapter we have talked about if-else statements. That was the first statement for control flows. The second is switch statements. This is an alternative to if-else blocks. It controls the flow depending on an integer or a string. String is valid for Java 7 and later versions, say Java 8. Okay? Or you may control the flow by an enum value, and we will talk about enum values later on. So you are not stuck with Boolean values if you are using switch statements. Syntax is this: switch parentheses. Inside the parentheses you put the value to be checked against, and case possible value 1, you put the codes you want to execute, and then you put a break statement here. Break statement is the correspondence statement of curly braces in if-else statements. So if this case is correct, this code block will be executed till this break statement. So if this statement is not true, this statement is checked and this code will be executed till this break statement. If all of the cases are false, the default statement will be executed until the break statement. Here we have a month integer and its value is 2. So we will set a value to month string according to the month. So we are putting a switch statement here and we will check against this month integer value. So we are putting this month into here. So if month is 1, this code will be executed. So we will set January to month string till this break statement. When this break statement is met, the code execution flow will go out of the switch statement and system.out.println will be executed. If month is 2, this code block will be executed till this break, and when the break is met, the switch statement will be broken and will go here. Execution will go on from this line. If our control variable is a string means basic text, and if month string is January, this code will be executed. We are in January till this break statement, and when the break is met, the switch statement will be broken. So code flow will go here and this line will be executed. If this case is not true, this case will also be checked, and if it is true, this code will be executed till this break. What if you don't put break statement here? In this case, even if this case is true, this case will be checked. So if you have some overlapping cases, both of the statements will be executed. This is an important point. Now let's do an example on Eclipse. Say switch statement and put main method here. Okay, let's say we have number of bytes and it is 1024. Okay, here we have a switch statement, number of bytes. We need to put curly braces to define the context of switch statement. After that, let's put our first case 1 and sysout. This is single byte. We should put break here. After that, I'm putting another case. If number of bytes is 1024, this is kilobytes. Okay, and then put a break here to separate this case from the others. Case, this is megabytes, and put the break. Now I want to put the default case. This code block will be executed if number of bytes is not 1, this value or this value. So let's write the code to be executed. Sysout know what it is and break. Let's beautify the code by doing indentations and then write switch is done. Okay, now let's run the code. Since the number of bytes is 1024, this case will be false, this case will be true, and this code block will be executed. This is kilobyte, and then Java virtual machine faces with break statement, so switch is broken. So execution flow will go here, and the next line will be executed. This system.println will be executed, so switch is done. What if we don't put break here? Let's see the result. As you can see, since number of bytes is 1024, this statement is true, so this code block has been executed. And since there is no break statement here, this code also has been executed. So this is megabyte is printed out and break is met. So the switch has been broken to here. So the next line has been executed after the switch statement. What if none of the cases has break statement? All of the statements has been executed because the switch statement has not been broken in any ways in any conditions. I think you understood the importance of break statements, so I'm putting the break statements again. Let's say our value is 2000. In this case, this and these statements will not be true, so we will go to the default case. Let's check it. We drop into the default case because we don't have any logic for value 2000. So default case has been executed. I don't know what it is, and break statement has been met. So the flow has gone here, and switch is done statement has been printed out. Okay. See you in the next chapters. Hi, in this chapter we will talk about loops. Loops are used to do similar things several times, not to copy-paste code several times. And loops can be executed as long as a condition is true and can be stopped whenever you need, when a condition is not satisfied. Each execution of the same statement or similar statement is called as iteration. Java has two main loop types. First one is for, second is while. To ease the job of for, we have an implicit type for each, and we have an advanced while loop, do while. Okay? This is the syntax of for loop. For, parenthesis, start condition. It can be anything. Semicolon, end condition. This is also optional, and it must evaluate to a Boolean statement. So this can be a number comparison or similar thing. And semicolon. After that, statement after each iteration. And this statement will be executed after each iteration is executed. This is also optional, and it can be any statement. This can be a system.println statement, or this can be a value assignment to another variable. Okay. So here is the usage of for loop. Let's say we want to print out the numbers between 1 and 10. Let me do this without a for loop without for, and put a main here. How to print out the numbers from 1 to 10? It is basically sysout 1 and then the numbers till 9. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. So this is not a reasonable solution, right? we would be asked to print the numbers from 1 to 1 million. So we would have 1 million lines here. So this is not a reasonable solution. That's why we are using loops. Let's say we want to print out these numbers with a for loop. Let's check the syntax again. First one is start condition and it is optional. So I will not put a start condition here, but I must put the semicolon here. The second value is end condition. End condition is somehow required for me. Let's say a value number 10. As long as this number is smaller than 10, I will execute this for loop over and over again. In previous chapter we have talked about for loops. The second loop type is while loop. In while loop, a code block is executed while a condition is true. Syntax is while parentheses. We put the condition in parentheses and we are putting curly braces to define the context. This is required and should be evaluated as a Boolean result. So this condition should be a Boolean true or false value. Let's print the numbers from 10 to 1. In this case, while this condition is true, this code block will be executed. So while x is greater than 0, this code block will be executed. And at the end of each iteration of the while loop, x will be decremented by 1. So it will start from 10 to 0. And in each iteration, x value will be printed out. Let's try it on Eclipse. While loop, public static void main. Let's sum all the values from 10 to 20. Int sum equals to 0. And let's define another integer index. And it starts from 10. Okay? While index is smaller than 20, we will sum up sum and index. So sum equals to sum plus index. At the end of all iterations, we will get the result and we will sum all the values from 10 to 20 into sum. Let's print out sum and do the correct indentation and print the value. As you can see, code has not been stopped because this condition is never false. So we need to have a value for this condition to be false. This condition is index has come to 20. So we need to increment index by 1 because we want to add all the values from 10 to 20. Okay? Stop the execution and re-execute the code. It is 145. Let's print out the sum value after each iteration. Sum and here results. Let's run the code. In the first iteration, the value is sum equals to sum 0 plus index. Index is 10. So the first iteration will result as 10. Okay. The next iteration is that index is 11 because we have incremented it by 1. Index is 11, sum is 10. 10 plus 11, it is 21. In the next iteration, 21 plus 12, it is 13. And goes like that. And the result is 145. So this is the usage of while loops. Till now we have learned about for and while loops and we set some boundaries for these loops. Other than the boundaries that has been defined in the beginning, we may break these loops dynamically. Whenever we reach a case while iterating inside the loop, we may break the loop other than the boundaries of the loop. This is done by break statement. Let's see an example. Here we are asked to print exactly one numbers that can be divided by 3 and smaller than 100. So the boundaries of the for loop is between 0 or 1 and 100 because all the numbers must be smaller than 100, and when we reach number 100, for loop should be completed. And the breaking case, the other condition is reaching 10 numbers. So while iterating over the for loop dynamically, when we reach 10 numbers, we will break the for loop not to print out any values anymore. Okay? Let's check the code and we will write it in Eclipse manually. Here we have a count starting from 0, and this will store how many numbers we have found and printed out, and it will be incremented whenever we find a number that can be divided by 3. Okay, here is our for loop, and this for loop will iterate over the numbers from 1 to 100, and in each iteration we will check if this number is divided by 3 by mod operation. If the remainder part of mod operation is 0, that means this number is divisible by 3. And in that case, we will print out this new number and we will increment count by 1 so that we can mark that we have found another number that can be divisible by 3. And whenever we reach the number 10, we have found 10 numbers, we will break. When this break statement is executed, this for loop will be broken and JVM will go to the very end of the for loop, and the next line after the for loop will be executed. Let's create a class divisible by 3 and create a main method int count equals to 0 that will store how many numbers we have found till now. And this is our index, say it is 1, and inside the for loop we have no starting condition, and here we have a completion condition. It is index is smaller than 100, so when index reaches 100 the for loop will be completed. And in each iteration I want index to be incremented by 1, so index plus plus goes here, and let's put curly braces to define the context here. Okay, if index is divisible by 3, print out the value and increment count by 1. Okay, sorry, this is just one modulus. And if count equals to 10, just break the for loop, and after the for loop I will print out operation is done. Okay, now let's run the code. So we have printed out all the values smaller than 100 that can be divisible by 3. We have printed out 10 of them. Okay, now let's debug the code to see what is going on here. Double click here and click the arrow next to the bug and run divisible by 3. Okay, this will open another perspective and we will be able to see all the values here, all the variables here and its values. Okay, by clicking F6 you will go line by line. Now count is 0, index is 1, and in the first iteration we are checking if index is smaller than 100. It is, so we are going into the for loop. Okay, index is 1, so it is not divisible by 1, so this if statement will be skipped for now. Right, this statement has not been executed, so we are checking count against 10. Count is 0, so it is not 10, so we should not break. Okay, F6, and we are coming back to the for loop. Index is 1. Why? Because at the end of each iteration this code will be executed automatically even if it is not written inside the for loop. So by clicking F6 again, index is 2, so it is not divisible by 3, so this if block is not executed, and here count is 0, so it is not equals to 10, so we are not executing this code block again, and we are coming back to the for loop again. Now index is 3, so it is divisible by 3. So we are coming inside the if block, so we will print out index is 3, and we will increment count by 1. Please check it. I'm clicking F6. Okay, count is 1. Whenever the value of any variable is changed, it is marked as yellow line. Okay, you can see that, and count is 1. So the execution goes like that. Please put a break line here by double clicking and click F8. That means do not go line by line, but whenever you reach this line, stop there. Okay, so here count is 10 and index is 30. Since count is 10, we have come into this line and we are breaking out. Let's click F6. Okay, so the next line after the for loop has been executed here. Let's click F6. Operation is done. So this is the demonstration of for loop with break statements and the execution flow line by line. See you in the next chapters. Hi, in this chapter we will talk about nested loops. You may use a loop inside each iteration of another loop. So you can use a for loop here, and inside it you may use another for loop. This is called as nested loop. Boundaries of for loops may depend on each other, or they may be totally independent. Okay, here I have put an example here that the inner for loop's boundary depends on the outer loop. Okay, this I is used here, so the boundary of this for loop is depend on the outer loop. This is not always the case. The boundaries of the for loops may be independent. Now we will do an example. Let's print all even numbers that can be divided by 2 from 30 to 60 and print their half, their 1/3 and their quarter. So the result will be something like this: 30, half of it 15, 1/3 of it 10, quarter of it 7. And here 60, half of it 30, and 20 is 1/3 of 60, In previous example, we introduced nested loops. In this loop, outer loop and inner loop boundaries were independent. But in this chapter, I will show you how to use nested loops that boundaries are depend each other. Here we have asked to draw this shape into console with stars, system.out.print and system.out.println. As you can see, we have 10 columns and 10 rows. We will use nested loops to draw rows and columns. Outer loop will draw the rows. First iteration will draw this line, second this line, third this line, and the last iteration will draw only one. And in each row we have some specified number of stars. In first row we have 9, in second 8, then 7 till 1 stars. So we have 10 minus row index stars in each row. Okay? We implement this requirement by nested loops. The outer loop will draw rows and inner loop will columns. So in inner loop there will be only 10 minus I stars. I will be the index of the outer loop. So first iteration I is 0, so we will draw 10 minus 0 minus 1 because it is smaller than and not equals to 10 minus 0 minus 1 stars, then 10 minus 1, 8 stars, and at the end 10 minus 8 minus 1, just 1 stars. And in inner loop we will use print method because we want all stars to be drawn in the same row. But after drawing all the stars we need to put a new line break, so we are using println method after the inner for loops iteration is done. Let's implement it in Eclipse. Basic triangle. Let's say we are drawing a square first. For that means we have iterate 10 times. Okay, and inside we will have another loop and it will be iterated by index j. And let's print out the stars next to each other. After drawing all the stars we will put a new line. Okay, we put new line, but we need to draw the stars next to each other, so no ln here. Let's see the result. So we have drawn a square, a rectangle, 10 columns and 10 rows, but we want them to cut from the half. Okay, that's why I need to put 10 minus I, because I want to draw as many stars as 10 minus row index. Let's see the result. That's all. So we have nested loops that boundaries are depend each other. In the exercises I have prepared similar problems for you. Please solve them. See you.